Across the United States this week, public frustration with powerful institutions and political leadership has been spilling into the streets in visible and coordinated ways. From technology companies to federal agencies to the White House itself, Americans are signaling that they are fed up, and they are doing it loudly, creatively, and persistently. In Portland, Oregon, and in South Lake, Texas, demonstrators gathered outside Apple Store locations to voice anger at Apple's decision to remove an app known as IceBlock from its App Store. The app had been used by communities to alert neighbors when federal immigration enforcement agents were spotted operating in local areas. Protesters argue that the app was a safety and information tool, not a criminal one, and they believe Apple caved to pressure from the Trump administration when it complied with the request to remove it. Signs outside Apple stores made the message clear: put IceBlock back on the App Store. Demonstrators criticized Apple CEO Tim Cook directly, accusing the company of abandoning its stated values of privacy and civil liberties when it mattered most. For many protesters, this issue is about more than a single app. It represents corporate compliance with political pressure at the expense of vulnerable communities. Meanwhile, protests aimed directly at President Trump followed him as he attended the Army-Navy football game. Outside the event, demonstrators held signs demanding accountability and restraint, with messages such as "Don't obey illegal orders" and "No war crimes with my tax dollars." In Baltimore and other cities, chants and banners framed the moment as a rejection of authoritarianism, warning against what participants described as creeping tyranny. On the National Mall in Washington, D.C., activists staged one of the most visually striking protests of the week. A massive photograph depicting Donald Trump alongside Jeffrey Epstein was unfurled on the grass facing the White House. The timing was intentional. The demonstration came just days before a new release of Epstein-related documents was expected, reigniting national attention on the former financier's crimes and his connections to powerful figures. At the same time, new polling data underscored a dramatic shift in public opinion. A recent Reuters poll found that fewer than 20% of Americans now believe Donald Trump was unaware of Epstein's criminal behavior before it became public. That figure has steadily declined, suggesting growing skepticism among voters about Trump's past associations and credibility. This erosion of trust fits into a broader pattern reflected across multiple polls. On issue after issue, Trump's approval ratings are sinking. Political observers are beginning to note that the decline is not limited to traditionally liberal regions. Even in conservative-leaning states and media markets, the tone of coverage is changing. Take Tulsa, Oklahoma as an example. Local television news recently aired footage of protesters from Indivisible Tulsa County, a grassroots organization calling for unity, affordable living costs, and peace abroad. One of the group's leaders explained that rising prices and economic pressure are dominating everyday conversations, even as national leaders seem disconnected from those realities. During the same week, President Trump attempted to address concerns about affordability by making remarks that quickly drew backlash. At a public appearance, he suggested that families did not need to buy dozens of toys for their children, commenting that 2 or 3 dolls is nice, but you don't need 37. The remark was replayed verbatim on local Oklahoma news broadcasts, underscoring how out of touch many viewers felt it sounded. Polling helps explain why such comments are resonating negatively. According to the latest Associated Press survey, Trump's approval rating on the economy stands at just 31%, with 67% disapproving. That puts him underwater by 36 points on what is typically considered a core strength for Republican presidents. Healthcare numbers are even worse. On that issue, Trump is facing a 40-point deficit in approval. Notably, this polling was conducted before the annual Affordable Care Act enrollment deadline, when millions of Americans are confronted directly with rising insurance premiums. Analysts point to policy changes pushed by Trump and congressional Republicans that removed cost-stabilizing provisions, leading to significant increases in monthly premiums. As these higher costs begin to hit households, the political consequences are expected to intensify. Critics argue that the administration has failed not only to prevent the increases, but also to offer a viable fix, leaving voters to absorb the impact. Beyond polling and protests, administrative turmoil is compounding the problem. At the Department of Veterans Affairs, plans are underway to eliminate approximately 35,000 healthcare positions, including doctors, nurses, and support staff. The announcement has sparked outrage among veterans groups, who see the cuts as a betrayal of commitments made to those who served. FEMA, another critical agency, is also under scrutiny. The Trump administration recently appointed a new leader to oversee response and recovery operations, despite the individual having no meaningful background in emergency management. The appointment drew particular criticism because the appointee has publicly claimed that multiple U.S. elections, including ones Trump won, were stolen. For many observers, the decision symbolizes a preference for loyalty over competence. State leaders are responding to this national climate in strategic ways. California Governor Gavin Newsom has taken an aggressive stance, celebrating legal victories that limited what he described as unlawful federal deployments of the National Guard within the state. At the same time, California is recruiting prominent public health officials away from Washington, offering them an environment where expertise is respected and supported. In Maine, Governor Jane Mills announced a major policy shift, ending state cooperation between local law enforcement and federal immigration authorities. In an op-ed, she framed the move as a necessary response to public opposition against harsh and performative immigration tactics. Polling appears to back her up.